What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and today we have a very exciting guest for our video. So we're going to be talking about the top 10 reptile monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I have brought none other than TheDuelLogs for today's discussion.
Hello, what's up? I am TheDuelLogs. I used to do nothing but gimmick decks for 5 years, and now I do nothing but gimmicky top 10s.
Yes, so if you guys like this discussion, you definitely want to check out the TheDuelLogs channel. A link will be in the description below, as well as linked at the end of today's video. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk about the top 10 reptile monsters in all of Yu-Gi-Oh!
And at number 10, we have Epira, a level 2 reptile type monster who simply has the effect that when it's summoned, you get to draw one card, which is a great effect to have. Although this effect is a hard once per turn, there's no real way to abuse the card, but if you have an easy way to get this card out, that is excellent advantage to have, while also being able to use the card for link plays. This card only really saw play in Mech Knight decks in a competitive sense, since they don't really use their normal summon very often. This allowed them to draw into their Mech Knight cards more, and then maybe use them for link plays.
At number 9, we have Subterror Behemoth Umastrix, which might not look like a reptile monster. It looks like some crazy gigantic mole thing, but it is a reptile monster. It's a level 7 reptile monster that says, flip, you can target one monster your opponent controls, banish it. You can only use this effect of Umastrix once per turn. When a face-up monster you control is flipped face down, if you control no face-up monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. Once per turn, you can change this card to face down defense position. So what does this card do? Well, in most cases, you are playing this as a one-of in pretty much every single Guru control strategy. Back in the day, before Guru came out, we played Subterrors. We played a lot more of them. This card was like a 2-of or a 3-of. Nowadays, though, the Subterror Guru deck doesn't play a lot of monsters. Umastrix is very, very important in that deck, though, because you really want that removal, and it's really versatile removal. Banishing a monster is really, really strong. Sure, it targets, and sure, it can't hit back rows, but it is still a very powerful effect.
And at number 8, we have Gigabyte. This card can special summon itself from your hand if you control a spellcaster type monster. And generally, cards that can special summon themselves from the hand pretty easily will see play. And this card also has extra effects on top of that, where if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon a monster from your deck that has 1500 attack and 200 defense. And there's two other monsters who are very similar to Gigabyte, called Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness and Inari Fire, who both can also special summon themselves from the hand if you control a spellcaster type monster, and both have 1500 attack and 200 defense. So they combo very well with Gigabyte and can be brought out by him if he's unfortunate enough to be destroyed on the field and not used for combo plays. Gigabyte sees play in Crusadia decks occasionally, since they have spellcaster type monsters, and love to special summon other monsters from their hand for combo plays.
At number 7, we have Kagetogage, a really interesting level 4 monster from pretty early on when Xyz monsters were first released. Now, I've played this card in a lot of decks, mostly just spirit strategies, so I do like this card a lot. Basically, this is a level 4 reptile monster that when you normal summon another monster that's a level 4, you can special summon it from your hand for free. Now, that's really good in some decks, like spirits, because it puts a free monster on the field. Cards like this have seen success in the past for other types of situations. For example, there's that Butter Spy card that's basically Kagetokage but a warrior monster, which is really good for making Isolde. These types of effects are always wanted in decks that want more summons. These days, we don't see a lot of Kagetokage, but for a while it was a pretty good choice for any deck trying to spam out rank 4 monster cards.
And at number 6, we have Evoltile Westalo and Najasho. These two Evoltile cards were the main combo pieces to the Evoltile deck that saw competitive play for a short time when they first came out, as they were the best cards in order to bring out the Evil Sore monsters from the deck. Westalo simply had high defense and a flip effect to special summon one monster from the deck, and since the Evil Sore monsters gain their effects when they're special summoned by an Evoltile monster, this was probably the simplest way to activate their effects. Najasho was a little bit better, because its effect could be procced if the card was tributed. So, if you use the card Evo Force, which allows you to tribute an Evoltile monster in order to special summon an Evil Sore monster from your deck, you were able to special summon two monsters from the deck with one little 2-card combo. You can also use something like Enemy Controller to tribute your Najasho in order to steal one of your opponent's monsters and activate its effect. And since you could use the Evil Sore monsters to go into Logia or Dalka, you could very effectively go into some really good Xyz monsters.
Number 5, we have Performapal Lizard Draw, which is oftentimes played alongside Performapal Gi Turtle, which is unfortunately not a reptile monster, but it is very important for this combo. Basically, if you had the Gi Turtle in one of your pendulum zones and you played another Performapal monster in your other pendulum zones, you got to draw one card. And then the Lizard Draw, while it's in the pendulum zone, you can blow it up to draw another card. So these cards were oftentimes searched together with like Performapal Pendulum Sorcerer, and then you get 2 free draws. Lizard Draw was a staple in pretty much every single Performapal deck list for a very, very long time. It was a very important piece in all the post Breakers of Shadows versions of that deck. Still at number 5, I want to also talk about Performapal Part Naga, yet another reptile monster in the archetype. Now this card's effect is not nearly as good as Lizard Draw, no one's debating that. However, it was a very searchable low skill for that strategy, which sometimes really came in clutch. Notice that both Lizard Draw and Gi Turtle are both high scales, they're both 6 scales, so sometimes you would actually need to search a low scale like Part Naga. Not the most important card effect-wise, but the fact that it's a low scale that you can search out when you need it made it a pretty good card for many Performapal players.
And at number 4, we have Masked Chameleon. This is a level 4 tuner monster who could special summon other monsters, which made it very good since getting out a 1-card synchro was a big deal back in the day. But there's lots of restrictions to this card. You can't actually normal summon this card if you control a level 5 or higher monster. It only works if this card is normal summoned. You can only special summon a monster from the graveyard who has exactly 0 defense. The card's effect is negated on the field, and during the turn you special summon that monster, you can't special summon any other monsters except from the extra deck. But if all you wanted was a 1-card synchro, this could accomplish that very well. Same with a 1-card rank 4 Xyz monsters when those came out. But, funny enough, this card saw the most amount of competitive success in pendulum decks, since pendulum decks, before Master Rule 4 anyway, would special summon most of the time from the extra deck. So its restriction didn't really restrict them that much, and Masked Chameleon could just be used as free advantage, and an actual use of your normal summon. So Masked Chameleon was a staple addition in Performapal decks until Master Rule 4. Nowadays, I don't think it really sees any competitive success.
At number 3, we have King of the Feral Imps, a rank 4 monster and a reptile that's very, very powerful. When we talked about some of the cards in today's video, like Gigabyte, like Masked Chameleon, like Kagetogage, part of the reasons those cards were actually played is because they were searchable with King of the Feral Imps, one of the best reptile monsters ever printed. This thing says once per turn, you can attach 1 Xyz material from this card to add 1 reptile type monster from your deck to your hand. Notice how it does not have a level restriction unlike Gear Gigant X. This card is fantastic, and this is one of those cards that made many of the reptile monsters in today's video actually playable, because you only had to play like 1 or 2 copies of them in your deck, and then anytime you could summon a rank 4 monster, you could just search them for free. Specifically, Masked Chameleon was one of those cards that, because it was searchable by this thing, suddenly made it a very popular choice, because you could add it to your hand and then pendulum summon it right away. King of the Feral Imps is one of those cards that is always going to be in the back of players' minds, because anytime a new reptile monster comes out, it's searchable automatically.
And at number 2, we have Sinister Serpent. This card got an errata, so it's not as good as it used to be, but in its original form, this card had the effect where if it was in your graveyard during your standby phase, you could just add it back to your hand. So basically, with 3 copies of Sinister Serpent, you would just have a near infinite amount of discard fodder every turn. Or I guess not infinite, just 3 of them. But going +3 every turn from Sinister Serpent's returning to your hand was really good. Even if you only used 1 of them, there's a lot of good cards that have a discard cost. And being able to ignore those costs with copies of Sinister Serpent was really good, as lots of people found out when Phoenix Blade started seeing a whole bunch of play as well. So they changed the effect since it was effortless recursion every turn, unlike Phoenix Blade, which actually requires you to do something to get that card back, where its new effect makes it so you still get the card back during the standby phase. But you also have to banish a Sinister Serpent from your graveyard during your opponent's next end phase. So if you discard this card after adding it back, it will be banished before you get to bring it back for a second time. And it also has a hard once per turn on its effect. So no more adding back 3 of them during each of your standby phases. Instead, you could just banish 1 of them in order to add another 1 of them back. So they did a good job of balancing the effect out. And balanced cards don't really see play. So currently, Sinister Serpent doesn't really see any play in any decks.
Before we get to our number one choice for best reptile monster in the entire game, I want to give a big honorable mention to basically every single worm monster that's ever seen competitive use. There are a ton of worm monsters, and many of them are not very good, but a few of them actually did see quite a lot of competitive play, even at like YCSs. At number one, you guys probably already guessed it by now, but it's Danger Tsuchinoko. So this is by far the most popular reptile monster, the most played reptile monster in all of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. This is one of those cards that revolutionized how danger monsters were actually seen by the community, because prior to this card's release, prior to this second release, people didn't really consider danger monsters that competitive. They had a couple tops here and there, but all they had were Chupacabra, Bigfoot, Jackalope, and Nessie. Now Jackalope and Nessie are really good cards, and Bigfoot and Chupacabra did see play from time to time, but it was when Danger Tsuchinoko came out that people said, holy crap, you can just play 3 copies of Tsuchinoko, 3 copies of Jackalope, and 3 copies of Nessie in almost any deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! The big thing about Tsuchinoko that makes it so much better than many of the other dangers is that it's guaranteed to summon itself. If your opponent misses it, it's going to summon itself and you draw a card, but even if they hit it, you get a free special summon. That is huge, and that's why we see now Nessie, Jackalope, and Tsuchinoko all limited on the most recent Forbidden and Limited list. These cards are insanely powerful, and Tsuchinoko also has one of the best artworks in the entire game, if I do say so myself. It's definitely a fan favorite card, and also the best reptile monster that Konami has ever printed. Before I end today's video, I want to give a huge shout out one last time to the TheDuelLogs for joining me in today's discussion. I have seen so many comments over the past year or two from you guys asking for a collaboration between us, so I thought finally we would make that happen. And make sure to go check him out. There will be a link to his channel in the description below. Anyway though, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.